Hello. So joining me today is the lovely Helen Padarin. How are you, Helen?
I'm great. Thanks, Alex. How are you going?
I'm super good. Now, you're a naturopath, nutritionist, and author. Your book is just about to come out, which is really exciting. Now, today we're talking about something that a lot of people struggle with, and that is inflammation. So I might do two things. I might, while you start to talk about inflammation, I might move myself from this horrific leaf blower that has just started right outside my window, so people are getting a little tour of my apartment in the background there.
It's nice and bright and airy.
Yeah, totally. So how did you get to be doing what you're doing today? Like, what was your journey? Always into holistic health, or?
Well, not really. I guess until about, I did kind of get into it reasonably young, but it was on my own journey rather than being introduced to it by my family. Mm-hmm. I grew up very standard scientific family, going to doctors as needed. From the get-go, I had asthma and allergies and hay fever, and I'd start every day by turning off the alarm and taking an antihistamine and taking my puffers and, you name it. I had the infection every year. I had bronchitis every March. I'd get pneumonia. I had shingles when I was 16. Like, it just went through the whole gamut of things. And then even into late teens, had a bit of not diagnosed depression, but definitely very low moods. Polycystic ovaries in my early 20s. So, but during my childhood and adolescence, I just had this desire, not so much to eat healthy, but just not eat the things that made me feel like rubbish. Yeah. I hadn't quite clicked onto the I want to be healthy thing yet. And as it happened, my sister had done an aromatherapy course, and I started having a read of her books. And when my niece would get sick, I'd get out the book and have a read and use the oils with my niece, and she'd get better really quickly. So I thought, there's something in this. And so that began my inquiry into what is natural health. And I'd always been a bit of a greenie and liked the natural world, and I was always a carer as well. So the two blended really nicely for me, and I haven't looked back since. I feel better now than I did when I was a teenager. So
yeah, so do I. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, you just think, oh my gosh, I think there's something that happens in your late 20s or mid-20s, let's say, if you're someone who was really sick as a teen, but you just didn't have access to all the information yet, where you're old enough to literally have a bit of a mini aha and say, I'm pretty sure this isn't the way it's meant to be. Yeah. Enough of one to finally start to look into stuff. So how did you then become a professional?
Yeah, well, I was lucky in that, so my sister's 10 years older than me, so by the time she had done the course, just the interest course in aromatherapy, and I started looking, it was around the time that I was finishing up school and thinking, what am I going to study? And I was thinking of perhaps doing nursing or being a park ranger. And, so then I found out about naturopathy and was looking into that. So I actually went straight from school into studying naturopathy. So I feel quite blessed in that sense, because it meant I started my own healing journey a lot younger than I otherwise would have.
How brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was a challenge as well, because when I was just graduated, and, that's a good 14 years ago or so now, I felt it was hard in clinic because I didn't have the life experience, and I was, talking to women who were going through menopause and feeling like, how I was more conscious of what they were thinking of me being so young and trying to help them through things. But, so I've now been in practice for 14 years, and I love it. It's a continuing journey for myself. I'm always learning more about myself, but I'm also every year more and more capable of helping others as well. And I just love seeing the transformations that people make in their own life that they didn't even realize was possible.
Yeah.
And then how that kind of has a bit of a butterfly effect, and then, you know, their husband or their daughter or their cousin or, you know, whoever it is like, no, I want what she's having, or, you know. So it spreads, which is one of my favorite things about it.
Oh, it totally does, yeah. So obviously with quite an inflammatory teenage, or let's call it childhood. Yeah. So there's a lot of people in this course trying to actually reverse some sort of inflammation in their body. I mean, inflammation takes so many different forms. But can you share with us some pretty common causes that you've seen over the years in your practice that might set inflammation off in the body?
Yeah, well, I think we can't really get too far into looking at inflammation if we don't look at food, first of all. I mean, it's just so fundamental to every aspect of our health. And of course, when you think about it, every single cell in our body is made up of what we're eating. So we want to make sure that we're putting good stuff in, And so these days, in terms of diet, if we're looking at what is in the average Australian diet, American, New Zealand, anywhere in the developed world, basically, we're just eating so many foods that do create inflammation. So they're foods such as sugar. I mean, that's massive. Dairy for most people is a big one as well. Gluten and grains is also very big. They'd be what I see in clinic, the biggest causes of inflammation in the gut, which then relates to systemic inflammation.
Wow, okay. And you say inflammation in the gut. So if someone's really healthy, is the odd bowl of brown rice going to kill them?
Not necessarily, no. So if their gut's in good nick and their gut flora is in good nick and their brown rice has been soaked and ideally sprouted.
Oh, everybody's learnt just about that. This was all good.
Right. I mean, part of the problem with the foods that we're eating is we expect to eat things without preparing them properly and not suffer the consequences. And that's just not how nature works, right? No. So we have to live in line with nature. We're part of it. Yeah.
I think a lot of what's happened in the last 120 years or so has been this move away from nature. Like the modern built world is better, so let's just run at it like this, as fast as the speed of light. And it's really running back towards nature that is going to fix a lot of the problems that have happened over the 120 years, but preserve some of the amazing thought processes and convenience processes, but bring them into traditional food. I think that's where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, I think because as things are en masse at the moment, it's quite a funny psychology in a way. I don't know that you'd find any other species on the planet that thinks that, you know, we can live so out of rhythm with nature and not feel any ill effect with and
crazy.
So how does that work? I don't know.
It doesn't. It just does not work.
Yeah, well, how does that psychology come to being? But, you know, we do get very disconnected from our natural world, so I can see how it happens. But, yeah, we just need to remember, we are part of nature. We need to incorporate the rules of nature, and then we're empowered to live well and feel well and have a great life.
Yeah. And is it common for multiple sites around the body to be inflamed by one issue? Like, you know, I've heard so many stories of people having an allergy present in their little toe and with asthma. And then they remove the food and the little toe and the asthma both go. And it's just, what have you seen? Can you share with us some of the weirder things? Because I think a lot of people think they're abnormal when strange symptoms present, but it's actually just the allergy, and that's pretty normal to then just go and fix, right?
Absolutely, And if you think of the immune system, which is what regulates our inflammation, it's not located in one or two spots around the body. It's systemic and it's all connected. So if your immune system is on red alert for any reason because, you know, you've got leaky gut or a food sensitivity or an allergy, then it can affect anywhere in your body. And I mean, there's all sorts of examples. Things like rheumatoid arthritis are a big one. There's, generally always stuff going on in the gut with gut inflammation there. Migraines, again, always. I've never seen somebody with migraines, and I've seen a lot of people with migraines who don't have digestive issues going on and or food sensitivities and allergies. And sometimes the digestive issues aren't even that obvious. Mm-hmm. You've got to kind of look for the subtle signs sometimes, but then you deal with that, and then all of a sudden, the migraines aren't there.
I'm not going to let you get away with that without expanding. So subtle signs. I know a lot of people would have heard you say sometimes you've got to look for the subtle signs. Everyone's going, but what are they? Tell us, what are some subtle signs of digestive issues?
Well, it really can be anything, and sometimes they seem subtle as well because they're normal to you, right? Mm. So if you've always grown up with only having a bowel motion every 3 days, and that's not going to seem abnormal to you, right? Yeah. So you might go, oh yeah, my digestion's fine. But when you look at the detail, how often are you having a bowel motion? When you're having a bowel motion, is it fully formed or is it loose, or is there urgency? Do you have to go immediately, or you're in trouble? Does it feel like you're having a complete evacuation or an incomplete evacuation? All of those are subtle signs. Do you burp? Do you get heartburn? Do you get mouth ulcers? Do you get a funny taste in your mouth or bad breath? Any bloating at all? Do you see any food in your poo? Does your poo change colour depending on what you eat? There's so many things to draw from. And if we really look at what's going on with our poo, we learn so much about, causes of inflammation.
Oh, totally. Having had a son with a parasite year before last, I know so much about his poo. It's going to have to come up in the 21st.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, everyone needs to know about their poo.
Yeah, no, that's really good, because I think a lot of people, for some reason, it's taboo, and yet it's just one of our bodily functions, which should be daily at that. And yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime conversation topic for me. It's all good.
Maybe we should have a poo chat at another time. Yeah. I think we should do that. Okay, I'll schedule it.
I think some really important or really interesting trivia in terms of how does inflammation occur all over the body when there's, say, one immune reaction going on. If we just have a look at 3 really interesting points. One is that most of the immune system is in the lining of the gut wall. So we've got 80% of it there. Secondly, we've got more immune cells in our brain than we do brain cells. Okay, they're called microglia. And thirdly, we have more brain cells in our guts than we do in our brain. So if you look at how intertwined those 3 systems are, you can start to get an idea of how far-reaching the effect is. If something is affecting one of those systems, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's going to be affecting the other 2 as well.
Yeah, so true. And as someone who experienced debilitating foot pain after pregnancy, I just put it down to the fact that I'd had my baby, and it was just the weight of the baby. He was a bit of a bruiser, and having these cortisone injections and all these things. This was, not even 6 years ago, because I honestly thought it was an arthritic foot problem. But what I had been doing is eating gluten again during my pregnancy, where I wasn't before, because I knew I was intolerant. But everyone, for some reason, said, usually your allergies go when you're pregnant, so enjoy. But I, of course, kept going after the pregnancy because I thought, this is fine. Yeah. As soon as I stopped eating bread again, the foot problem went away. It was gone.
Incredible,
so
isn't it?
I just find that mind-blowing, and I just urge everybody who's listening to us today to really look past the Imodium for the runs or the Gaviscon for the heartburn and think, what is causing this? This is not a healthy human body. Something's obviously literally in the way of your health.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Cool.
Totally agree.
So, what are the most common foods? I mean, you've mentioned obviously gluten, grains, especially if you've got a gut issue. Is there anything else that might be a little bit more off the radar? Or what about talking about junk foods, for example? And some
Oh,
of the
totally.
things in
I
there?
mean, if we this, where do you begin?
Yeah.
That's got the whole gamut in there. It's got the sugar, it's got the processed grains, it's got the GMO ingredients that we just can't digest. It's got colorings, flavorings, preservatives. It's just got this chemical soup that what's our body got to do with it, you know? And one thing that is important to look at when we're dealing with these chronic inflammatory conditions, basically they're lifestyle conditions, right? So there's two causes to them. You've got too much of something and not enough of something, right?
Mm.
And so the solution then is to nourish and detoxify. So if we're putting all this junk into our body, doesn't know what to do with it, A, we're accumulating toxins, B, we're putting our immune system on red alert. So, you know, things are just going to go haywire.
Yeah.
And what else? In a lot of junk foods as well, you've got a lot of your hydrogenated fats,
Yeah.
you know, your really processed oils,
Yeah.
and they cause immense havoc. I mean, we've got fatty acids in all our cell membranes, and they get very damaged easily by oxidization. And all the, you know, most of the seed oils and things that are found in processed foods, they're already oxidized, and they do create problems with the cell membranes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so, you know, while we're on that topic, it seems pretty logical to quickly look at omega-6 versus omega-3. This is something that confuses a lot of people. Why is omega-6 in every form and quantity inflammatory? We do need a small amount, right?
Yeah, we do need some omega-6s for sure, but what tends to happen these days is our ratio between our omega-3s, 6s, 9s, and our saturated fatty acids is just all over the place. And whereas we need more of the omega-3s, we usually end up with a lot more of the omega-6s. And too much omega-6 does set up an inflammatory cascade because it affects our eicosanoid, our hormone regulation that's involved in inflammation. So omega-6s are found in a lot of seed oils like your sunflower oil, your canola oil, safflower oil, all those kinds of things. And they're the kinds of oils that we find a lot in processed foods, salad dressings that are shop bought, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so did they not know this when everybody moved to vegetable oil in the 60s and 70s? I mean, it seems pretty crazy to move entire Western population over to something that causes inflammation. Is this really new science, or can you share a little bit that you might know?
Yeah, so it's certainly not new science. And Ansel Keys, I can't remember, was that back in the...
Oh, God.
What decade was it now?
Oh, God, how do I not know that?
Long enough ago anyway.
Yeah. They've all learned about it last week, so we're all, the date's even in the course. They'll probably be able to tell me. Yeah. Yeah,
completely botched up the results from studies. And unfortunately, a lot of our dietary advice from the main authority figures today is actually fed through from the agricultural industry, and seed oils make great business, right? So unfortunately, the food industry is another industry, and so it doesn't always have consumer health at mind. It's often profit and productivity. So yeah, that's why it certainly pays to look into where this advice is coming from, because if you do look into research, it certainly does show that eating different kinds of fats and having fats from pasture-raised animals, for example, there's quite a lot of omega-3s in that compared to grass-fed animals where there's a lot more omega-6. So that's actually another big source of the omega-6 fatty acids too. Sorry, you know, the animals are fed grains because it makes them...
Did you mean to say grain-fed omega-6? Yeah, I was just like, I think it's grain-fed that you meant. Yep, okay, cool.
Yeah, so the grass-fed has the omega-3s, more of the omega-3s, and the grain-fed has more of the omega-6 fatty acids. So that's another big source of the omega-6s for us in our modern diet.
Yeah, which just goes to show when we feed an animal that we're going to eat an unnatural diet for them, that unnatural diet harm also gets passed on to us.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're not just what we eat, we're what we eat.
Totally.
Or what we ate.
Yeah. Used to eat, yeah. So it can all be a bit doom and gloomy if we're all thinking, oh, but my sore foot and my heartburn. And what are let's go solution-based now for our last few minutes together, because that makes everybody feel better.
Yeah.
What do you see as being some of your top foods to relieve and reverse? Let's talk relieve and reverse first. We'll talk prevent afterwards. They might well be the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lots of commonalities there. So I think top of my list is I've got 3 spices that always get named.
Yeah.
And you probably can guess what they are. But turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon are right up there. Yeah. So I often actually make up have a mix made up in clinic for people to be able to take it straight home so they can start using it. And those spices have got hundreds of studies on them showing how effective they are in their anti-inflammatory actions. So much so that extracts or combination of turmeric and ginger have been shown to be more effective than non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So that's quite important to keep in mind. So get that stuff in your diet.
I think it's always really interesting when you start to hear pharmaceutical companies trying to patent these herbs and spices, is when you realise that they know just how powerful these things are. Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's, whether that's fortunate or unfortunate, for them it's unfortunate that, you can't patent nature really.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make for good business. But for us it's great because we can go to the shop and or go to the garden and get our medicine from there. Yeah. So on top of the spices, blueberries is a huge one. I'm a massive fan of organic blueberries, whether they're fresh or they're frozen. Other berries are also fantastic, inflammatories and cherries. And fermented foods are particularly good too.
How do fermented foods relieve inflammation?
So many ways.
Yeah.
So two of the predominant ways are they contain heaps of enzymes, and enzymes are required for pretty much everything to happen in the body at a speed that keeps us alive. But they have a big influence on digestion and immune function and so on. So they're great anti-inflammatories. There's also a ton of probiotics in there, so beneficial bacteria in their food source, and they're alive and they're active. They don't need to be woken up like a supplement and get to work. They're not as lazy. So yeah, fermented foods are amazing. So you can do things like your fermented veggies, your coconut water kefir, your beet kvass, all that kind of stuff. Amazing. Love them. Yeah. So then if we're looking at the fatty acid side of things too, things like chia seeds and flax seeds are fantastic. But I want to really press the point that it's important, if you're having flaxseed meal, to make it yourself. So buy the flax seeds and then use a coffee grinder or your blender, your Thermomix, whatever it is, to give them a quick grind, and just grind enough for maybe a few days. Keep an airtight container in the fridge. All of the stuff that's already ground that you're buying in the shops, it just oxidizes so quickly. Omega-3 fatty acids are so unstable that when they're exposed to air, oxygen, light, and heat, they oxidize quickly. So yeah, it's so easy to just whiz it up when you need it, or pop it into your smoothie. Coconut oil is also anti-inflammatory, even though it's predominantly saturated fat. The lauric acid in there is a nice anti-inflammatory. And green tea, there's lots of studies on green tea as well, showing how strong an anti-inflammatory that is. So 1 or 2 cups a day of that is great. We don't want to OD on the green tea either. It still does have caffeine in it, so particularly if you're adrenally exhausted, then you don't want to be having the stimulants in your diet.
Now, you mentioned obviously omega-3 being really unstable, and therefore grind your flax seeds fresh every couple of days, it kind of makes, and then the little call about probiotics versus supplement versus cultured foods. And it makes me think about things like glucosamine or the fish oils that we buy. And well, not personally, but a lot of people are thought to, we live in a pill-popping society. Oh, you feel pain, you feel inflammation. If you're not going to take Voltaren, you want to do it the natural way, then here's this glucosamine or fish oil. And and I think they can be not obviously as bad as things like long-term Voltaren use in terms of stomach lining and all those sorts of things, but they have their own negatives as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the supplement things to sort of be aware of when choosing if you are going to go down that road?
Yeah, so a little preamble to that as well would be that you can't supplement away a bad diet. Yeah. So first of all, you have to have the cornerstones of good food in there. And secondly, you want to be looking out for quality of your supplements. So there's a lot of difference in brands. Again, it's a huge industry, and so sometimes the cheapest, nastiest ingredients can go into supplements because there's not necessarily a lot of regulation there either. So you do want to investigate what are quality brands, and that's where often seeing a health practitioner is a good idea because they can guide you not only in terms of brands and dosages, but also what one is actually going to be most appropriate for you. There's, it could be great that, yes, green lip mussels are fantastic anti-inflammatory, but is that the type that you need? And then, in the quality and contamination side of things, you've got things like fish oil. It's really important that you've got high quality there that's not being contaminated by heavy metals. Having a look at what's in the coatings of capsules as well. Are they just gelatin? What kind of gelatin? Where is it from? Do they have plastic coatings? Like there's all sorts of colours in there as well. So there's no point taking some poison with your remedy, So you want to get the good stuff and know that it's doing the job. And in terms of quality, you get some that have like mega dose glucosamine, but you can do little experiments even with dissolving it in a cup of water, and you get these mega dose ones that are claiming, you get so much more out of it, but it just does not dissolve and you cannot absorb it. So in that case, you're better off going with a better quality that's got less quantity in there, but you can actually assimilate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And really, really valid. And, before you were talking about how turmeric and ginger stand up to scientifically some of the pharmaceuticals used, like certain steroids. And I think that just illustrates that just because something's natural does not mean it's not powerful enough for you to see a qualified practitioner in that area.
Yeah.
There's so much information available on the internet, but what might lead you down the wrong path if you start believing someone's blog post here or someone's, a doctor in another country because you've just read something on the internet, when you can just spend $100 that is a very quality $100 to just be guided through a personalised. I think that's just a really good time to bring up that point because these things are powerful and it's important to get it right and tailored to us.
They're powerful and they're powerful and they can be expensive as well. So you are better off investing in that guidance and support so that you're getting something that does the job and works for you rather than trying this and trying that and trying this and not really getting a result here. You want to go about it in an effective way. And so it works out a lot cheaper getting help without. I just see people who come in who've been self-medicating for years and going around in circles and you just think, my God, how much have you spent on supplements?
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, so obviously we might be prone to certain inflammation responses. It could be a genetic thing sometimes. Can we actually switch off these gene responses? Can we actually stop handing them down by changing our lifestyle and food?
Yeah, to a large degree and very often. So this is the whole field of epigenetics, and I don't know if you've already been discussing this with the crew, but basically Okay, so epi means on top of, genetics, genes. So it's all the things on top of genes, all the things that influence genes. And there's so much really fascinating research that's been coming out about that over the years as well. And if we look at, what are the things that influence genes, it's things like our environment, our diet. And when I'm talking environment, I'm talking our immediate environment and our outside environment. So anything from air and water pollution to body care products, household cleaning products, that's something that I know you're really passionate about. So these things do affect our genes. Our thoughts and our emotions are big epigenetic factors as well. So it's really important to be mindful and look after your mental and emotional and spiritual health. It's really no good to just sweep things under the rug and pretend it's not a problem and hope it goes away, because it won't. It's going to come out somehow. So, and our microbiome has a massive impact on our genes. So the microbiomes, what you're playing host to, all your microbes, your bacteria, your yeast, viruses, etc. Yeah. And they directly affect our genes. And what we eat affects our microbiome. So, there's research showing it can take a couple of generations to really turn it around, but it's important to know that what you're doing now is not just affecting your kids, it's affecting your grandkids. Yeah. So it's
a lot of people get scared by that, but I think that can just be such a powerful catalyst to make change and start getting excited by what you are personally doing for your lineage to come. It's pretty amazing.
How much power I know. It's amazing. Take control.
So you mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, and it seems like this is popping up everywhere at the moment in really young, beautiful 30-something, 20-somethings. What is going on? What are your tips? Because I'd say everyone out there would actually know at least one person who's dealing with this. Can it be cured?
Well, I don't know if we can use the word cured. It can certainly be reversed and go into remission. But generally speaking, if there's that tendency there, you're going to need to just be mindful of how you're living and what you're eating. But you can certainly become symptom-free without a doubt. So, there's a spectrum of rheumatoid arthritis, as there are with all autoimmune illnesses and any illness for that matter. And so it depends where you are on the spectrum. There's always going to be multiple factors involved as well. Sorry, there's little kids playing outside.
So just sound pretty happy.
Close the window. Okay, so yes, with rheumatoid, you're wanting to look at what the underlying factors are again. And that means you do need to look at food, you need to look at detoxification, you need to look at the emotional stuff. I see a lot of emotional stuff coming up with rheumatoid as well. But the sad thing is, I started saying before, I've now got like 2- and 3-year-old patients coming in with really severe rheumatoid arthritis, which is just heartbreaking. So part of this comes down to the microbiome and the environmental exposures. So it's really cleaning up the guts, getting the fermented foods in, doing stool test analysis so that you can see what microbes are growing in your guts and which ones aren't, that should be, so that you can take a really precise approach to resolving that imbalance rather than just going, let's just use this multi-strain probiotic and hope it does the job. Yeah. Sometimes the reason why people either don't respond to probiotics or get worse with probiotics is because the strains that they're using are not appropriate. So using a stool test, even though they are expensive, they provide a huge wealth of information with any autoimmune disease, but definitely with rheumatoid. I find that essential part of the plan.
Yeah, cool. And so I guess, we've talked about so many things and there's so much more we could talk about. But if you were to pick, of the most common styles of inflammation, the most common causes of inflammation, the most helpful reversal of some of those symptoms, what are your top 3? Okay.
So, it's hard to pick just 3, hey? So can I clump a couple of foods into one?
Yes, you can cheat.
One would be to eat fermented foods, okay? First and foremost, start getting those into your diet. You know, on the odd occasion, there'll be someone who has too much of a detox or die off from it, so might need to do some other work first. But generally, 99% of people, fermented foods, awesome. Secondly, I would reduce or eliminate, rather, grains, dairy and sugar, but especially if you can't do all of grains, at least do gluten, but you'll really get much faster results if you get rid of grains as well. Then when your gut is better, your immune system's better, you can look at, are there some grains that you can reintroduce that are properly prepared? But in terms of putting out the fire, getting rid of those. And then things like green juices, homemade green juices are amazing because they're both anti-inflammatory and they're really fantastic for detoxifying. And as I mentioned before, a lot of these inflammatory conditions have an element of you've got too much of something, not enough of something. We really need to promote those pathways of detoxification, and green juices are fantastic for that. But it needs to be freshly homemade, not shop bought. That stuff doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, a super awesome wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Absolutely.
I'm totally getting you back to talk poo, and we'll do that with the general audience so that everyone can learn from that one. Where can we find you? You've got a fabulous book coming out. Have you got it next to you to lift up? Here's one you prepared earlier.
Copies of this in Australia at the moment. I just got my hands on one yesterday.
Yay.
So this one is the Paleo Way for mums, bubs and toddlers. So we're just really looking at what's the best way to give your bubs the best start at life, basically getting all those super nourishing foods in. It's, excellent. So that's being done with Charlotte Carr and Pete Evans, so that's exciting. You can find my website at nourish-ed.com. And if you're following Pete Evans at the moment as well, he's doing a tour around Australia. He's doing 26 cities. I'm doing 11. So if you're in a main city or in Auckland or Wellington in New Zealand, then come and say hello there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'll see you real soon. Bye, Helen.
Yeah.
Bye.